When Miami's offense was sputtering late in that game, Mario Cristobal told his O-line, I'm going to let you guys eat. And late in that game, they feasted.
You are Locked On Canes, your daily podcast on the Miami Hurricanes, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Another Victory Sunday. I'm Alex Donno, University of Miami alumnus, co-host of Locked On ACC and host of Post Game on the Hurricanes Radio Network. And thank you so much to the everydayers for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. Today's episode is brought to you by FanDuel. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. Download the FanDuel app today. Yeah, we'll talk about the road ahead, which does include a bye week, which I think comes at a really good time because we still need to figure out what the hell is going on with, JoJo Trader and Jordan Lyle. Are they going to be good to go for Florida State? We'll need all hands on deck against the Seminoles in a couple of weeks. But, we're not going to focus on the next game because we need to focus on what happened last night, 26-7. Miami Hurricanes over the Florida Gators in what might be the last time we see the Gators ever in the regular season, with the SEC's 9-game schedule coming up. And, they're never going to schedule Miami again. So moving forward, if we ever see the Florida Gators in the future, it's going to have to be a bowl matchup or preferably a playoff matchup. That's the only time we're going to see Florida. But we're going to talk about the highest graded Miami Hurricanes in this one. And guys, it's all about the trench monsters in this one. So, I thought the low moment of the game last night, and the theme of the first half was Miami clearly the better team, clearly physically dominant in all aspects. Florida's offense, not only completely inept, but Miami's defense is so good. They were making life miserable for DJ Lagway, who had an awful game that I feel like people aren't really talking about because Lagway's been so awful this year. The bar keeps getting lower and lower and lower. Now, on Miami's side, Carson Beck didn't have a very good game, and we're going to talk about that. But, Miami was clearly the better, more physical team. But outside of Miami's opening drive, which was a masterpiece and gave the Hurricanes a 7-0 lead, touchdowns, not field goals, Miami started sputtering after that. Opportunities to get into the red zone, not finishing. Thankfully, Carter Davis, Miami's kicker, who would have ever thought that guy was 4 for 11 at FAU? He's really good now. And Carter Davis hit a 53-yarder to give Miami a 10-0 lead. Hurricanes had a 13-0 lead at halftime, but they had all these opportunities to score touchdowns, not field goals. They were keeping Florida in that football game. Now, a really important note on the third quarter, because this game featured a really controversial decision by the referees, where Miami absolutely got hosed. So you remember Miami is, driving around midfield, third quarter, up 13-0, with a chance to take a 20-0 lead. And they go for it on a 4th and 1. Marty Brown, always legs are churning with that dude. Marty Brown is powerful. He's a bowling ball, and he's in one of those piles, and he moves the chains on the 4th down, but the pile never stopped moving. His blockers never stopped moving forward. Marty's legs never stopped churning, and he escapes the pile to score about a 50-yard touchdown, or so we thought. But the SEC officials, can't even blame the ACC refs on this one. Maybe a little home cooking for the SEC team in there. The SEC officials errantly blew the play dead, marking his forward progress down. And in case you didn't know this yet, I was working the radio post-game broadcast last night on 104.3 WQAM in Miami, and Mario Cristobal was interviewed on that radio station, and he said the officials told him flat out they did that wrong. They flat out made a mistake, he said, when they blew that Marty Brown touchdown run dead. So you think about the way that changed the momentum. If that run counts, Miami's up 20-0 in the third. It's a completely different football game. Instead, that drive ends up stalling. Florida ends up putting together their only competent offensive drive of the entire game to cut Miami's lead down to 13-7. And then right after they cut it down to 13-7, Carson Beck made a mistake, made a bad one, throws an interception to Cormani McClain of all people. Gosh, for those, I know we have some everydayers on here that you guys date back. We've been doing this show Locked On Canes for like 3.5 years, and we've got some long-term everydayers. Do you guys remember like class of 2023 recruiting when we used to be talking about Cormani McClain every single day because he was committed to Miami and then he's waffling, then he's flipping to Colorado? I never wanted to say his name again, but here we are. He whose name shall not be spoken, had to be him, gets the interception. And then you're thinking, like, let's admit, there was a moment, was that late third quarter, early fourth quarter, where we're starting to sweat. Looks like Florida might have momentum, might come back to win this football game. But after that interception drive, and I do, he didn't have a good game, but I give Carson Beck credit because on the ensuing drive, which was mostly Miami running the football, by the way, but Carson did complete 3 passes on that 80-yard touchdown drive that Miami answered with, mostly up front, physical, Mark Fletcher, Marty Brown, Inez Cooper paving the way on the right side. And that's what Mario Cristobal said after the game. He told Inez Cooper was looking at him on the sideline, and coach says, Inez, you can go out there and eat. And Miami responded with their physicality, their offensive line wearing down Florida's defensive line. Miami's defensive line was wearing down Florida's offensive line. I saw Florida's offensive line, only their center graded out higher than like a 40 out of 100 on Pro Football Focus. Miami gave Florida's, an offensive line that had graded very well coming into this one. Miami gave them an awful time. And here's something that I really appreciate about this Miami Hurricanes team. Most of what they did last night worked when it comes to consistent pass rush. Rueben Bain, 4 straight weeks, has not only been the highest graded Miami Hurricanes player, offense or defense, but he's graded in the 90s on Pro Football Focus, which is elite. It's a 93.8 last night. This is a first rounder, probably a future top 5 NFL draft pick that we get to enjoy terrorizing opposing quarterbacks all year. And for as well as Ruben played, Akheem Mesidor was not far behind him. Like the two of them have been like, it's and anything he can do, I can do better is like, well, I guess what they say to each other in locker. They were right there. Marquise Lightfoot had an awesome game. And it wasn't just Miami's defensive linemen. My dude, Jacoby Thomas, friend of the show, Miami safety Jacoby Thomas, had that physical sack first half on the blitz yesterday on a 3rd down. It was like a 3rd and 3, 3rd and 4. Tremendous defensive play call dialed up by Corey Heatherman, who, I don't know, I know we usually give MVP awards to players, not coaches, but Corey Heatherman might have been the MVP for Miami last night. If not him, it was Jason Taylor coaching up those defensive linemen. But the Jacoby Thomas sack, and then he hits the Ray Lewis dance afterwards. That was everything for me. You know what else was everything for me? After the game was over, and the WQAM is in the locker room interviewing players and coaches. Rueben Bain, who again had an elite game. Let me run through his stats for you. He had 7 tackles yesterday. Bain, a half sack, a full tackle for loss, 7 quarterback hurries, which is a lot. Let me see what else. And that was only in he had 10 quarterback hurries I don't want to shortchange him. He had 10 quarterback hurries in just 29 pass rushing reps. So more than a third, like 36% of Rueben Bain's pass reps created quarterback hurries and creating havoc in the backfield. And Rueben Bain in the locker room after the game, he was literally eating gator meat. Literally. Somebody brought him a snack of gator meat. And you guys know by now, Rueben, he has those angry notebooks that he scribbles all about the upcoming opponents and talks a little trash. He's eating gator meat after I can't wait to see what he's got in store for Florida State in a couple weeks. And shout out to Hard Rock Stadium and the tailgating scene. There was a lot of this going on. You see that photo that I took yesterday? of the grilled barbecued gator. I didn't have any grilled gator. I've had gator a few times in my life. It's always been deep fried. Like I had it in New Orleans and I had it at like a Cajun style restaurant somewhere else. And I've never tried the grilled or the barbecued variety, but I have had gator meat before, and maybe I'll eat some tonight in celebration of that 26-7 victory. But I want to talk more about what went right for Miami, what I appreciate, and of course, there's things we have to polish up before the Florida State game. So, you guys, by the way, we're here live, so smash the like button. I've still got my wristband on from Hard Rock Stadium yesterday. I didn't get home till like 3 a.m. after post game. Just went right to bed. Didn't cut my wristband off. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're talking about Miami's 26-7 win against the Florida Gators. Hurricanes are 4-0 now on the season. Bring on the Seminoles next. You want to keep it locked right here. We're only getting started on this brand new Locked On Canes. Guys, it's a football Sunday, and you know what that means. FanDuel is making sure you are ready for kickoff this NFL season with a can't-miss offer. Right now, new customers can bet just $5, and if your bet wins, you'll get $300 in bonus bets to use across the app. I love using FanDuel because it fits however you like to bet. Player props, building a same-game parlay, even jumping in live as the action unfolds. FanDuel makes every game more exciting, whether you're watching your team or just keeping an eye on your fantasy lineup. It's quick, it's easy, and the best way to add a little more energy to your Sundays. So are you ready to play? Download the FanDuel app now by visiting FanDuel.com to get started. That's FanDuel.com to place your first $5 bet. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. For your next listen, make sure you check out Locked On ACC. Kenton Gibbs and I from Locked On Wolfpack host that show. Our next episode, I'm sure, is going to be a lot of fun because Clemson lost again, this time to Syracuse. Dabo Swinney continues to melt down at the podium. At some point, like the guys who play for him and the guys he's recruiting are going to realize he comes off to me like a narcissist. I mean, every time they lose, it makes it all about him. And this is what I've done. And this is what I've accomplished. Like, the guy needs to focus a little internally with what the team is doing. But I'm not here to rant about Clemson. I'm here to talk about the Miami Hurricanes and their 26-7 win against Florida. All right, so what I loved most about that W, Miami, as mentioned, completely exerting their physicality. You start with what they did on the defensive side of the football. Miami held the Florida Gators to 141 total yards. Now, I know the Gators' offense to this point has not exactly been the greatest show on turf, or it's not been Steve Spurrier's fun and gun, right? Danny Warfel hasn't been walking through that tunnel, right? However, I'll remind you, DJ Lagway, after the way Florida finished the year last year, that guy was supposed to be the best thing since sliced bread. DJ Lagway starts the season. Everybody's got him on their Heisman list. And, this guy's a future NFL stud. I'm sure Florida can make all the excuses in the world, including just blaming their coaching for everything. Their coaching does suck, by the way. But they'll make all the excuses in the world for why DJ Lagway is struggling. But his regression needs to be studied. But for as bad as he's been all year, Miami held DJ Lagway to 61 passing yards, 12 for 23, 52% completions, 61 passing yards in the game. And, we said it before that if Florida was going to really find some success offensively against Miami's newly revamped defense, they would have to have success running the football. Florida, in theory, has a good offensive line. Didn't play that well yesterday, but a good offensive line. And, their top running back, Jaden Baugh, is really talented. And outside of their one touchdown drive, where Baugh did punch in, I think, a 7-yard rushing touchdown to make it 13-7 Miami, Hurricanes kept Florida bottled up. They kept their running game bottled up. They kept their passing game completely ineffective. Baugh rushes 12 times for 46 yards. As a team, the Gators had just 80 rushing yards on 29 carries. So 4 games into the season, Miami has held all 4 of their opponents to under 100 rushing yards. Corey Heatherman needs to take a bow because you think of who Miami has played so far, all right? Notre Dame had allegedly the top rushing tandem in the entire country, and Miami held them to under 100 yards. USF, a team that is primarily a run-based offense. Miami forced them into becoming one-dimensional, having to throw the football, bottled up their running game, did good enough against their passing game. Now you face a Florida team, and again, I know their offense hasn't been good, but Miami held Florida to their lowest offensive output this season. 7 points is a low for them this year, and they held Jaden Baugh and company to under 100 rushing yards. That's a noticeable trend being developed here by Corey Heatherman's defense. And I'll say about the offense. I know the offense was what, had most of us at times frustrated because it wasn't perfect, right? I mean, Miami's opening drive, like a hot knife through butter or like a chainsaw cutting through a grilled gator. And then after that, the offense sputtered until the fourth quarter. Miami outscored Florida 13-0 in the fourth quarter. It was 2 touchdowns. They tried a 2-point conversion that failed. So Miami's offense came alive again. But throughout the second and third quarters, the offense hit a cold streak. They hit a blizzard in that game. And I understand that temptation there. But for Miami to be able to lean on that physicality the way that they did for the offense to come through, I think was a big thing. And I've already seen a couple of people say this in our live chat, the phrase complementary football, okay, which very much applies here. And it applies not only to the defense stepping up and picking up the offense when they're sputtering. Did that ever happen last year, by the way? When Miami's offense, Cam Ward last year, had to be perfect because if they weren't perfect, the defense was not there to bail them out. This year, the defense is there to bail you out. But not only that, in a game where Carson Beck doesn't play very well, I think there's something about Florida. Their coverage is very good, the way they disguise it. Beck very much had an off night. He goes 17 for 30, 160 yards, 0 touchdowns, and an interception. But he's able to really get picked up by his rushing attack. And Mark Fletcher, for the second straight week, has gone over 100 yards rushing. Fletch had 24 carries, 116 yards, and a touchdown. Marty Brown, I thought, was Miami's offensive MVP. I mean, for as good as Fletcher was, Shamar Brown, who should have had over 100 yards because, again, the SEC officials admitted to Mario Cristobal they flat out made a mistake when they blew his touchdown run dead. Like, they admitted we screwed it up. And unfortunately, with the officiating protocols, when you whistle a play dead, you can't, go back and reverse it. There's nothing you can do there, according to the protocols, except admit we made a horrible mistake. And can you imagine if that mistake had cost Miami the game? Thankfully, it didn't because the rest of Miami's team came alive. But Marty Brown had 18 carries for 80 yards and 2 rushing touchdowns. And Marty also led Miami in receiving with 4 catches for 53 yards in the game. But I'll tell you, the offensive player emerging that I think made me happiest to see last night was Elijah Lofton, Miami's tight end, who through the first 3 games, that was one of the biggest mysteries in my opinion, because I see the way Elijah has practiced for the last couple of years. He's always like a big part of Miami's offense. And it's not to say he hasn't played well this year because he's really been an important part of Miami's blocking. And Miami, I think, receivers and tight ends, outside of just the offensive line, Miami's receivers and tight ends are probably the best blockers in the nation when it comes to helping out the running game. I think that's something worth noting. But yesterday, in the 27-6 win against the Gators, we finally see Elijah Lofton become part of the passing game. And here's why it was so important. Carson Beck and his receivers yesterday were largely out of sync, right? CJ Daniels, Beck missed him a time or two. There was another time Beck put one on the money for CJ and he dropped it, right? Malachi Toney had an okay game, 4 catches for 40 yards, but they didn't have the usual magical Carson Beck connection. But Carson was able to find his safety valves, right? Marty Brown with over 50 receiving yards, Elijah Lofton with 4 catches for 43 yards. And those were significant catches that Lofton was making, moving the chains on a couple of occasions. So Carson being able to lean on those guys when the rest of the passing game just wasn't really working, I thought was an important factor. And guys, I know it's the sign to me of a really good football team when one part of your operation is not firing on all cylinders. That was the passing attack. When something is not working, you have enough other things that are working that it can pick that aspect up. That's what we talk about when we say complementary football, right? Miami's struggling to pass downfield. They throw an interception in the game, which felt like it could be very costly at the time that happened. When it's 13-7, you're giving the Gators good field position. But then what happens? And actually, it was a cool a sideline report from Josh Darrow on the radio network right before Miami's 80-yard touchdown drive, which came after the interception. Darrow mentioned like he was hearing what Shannon Dawson, Miami's offensive coordinator, was saying to his huddle, and that they were going to get physical and they were really going to try to move the football on the ground because Florida had just had a pretty physical touchdown drive against Miami, and Miami's offense wanted to come out and match that physicality, and that's exactly what they did. So they responded. They picked up Carson Beck when he had his worst game of the season so far as a Miami Hurricane, and I appreciate that. There were some other weird parts of the game. I would love to know, especially in the first half, what was going on with the James Brockermeyer snaps. I mean, what did we have? 3 snap infractions in the game, which, anytime you get penalized 5 yards, it's a pain in the butt. And it was happening to Miami multiple times. We talked about how the Hurricanes had trouble, second quarter, third quarter of finishing drives, right? Your drives are stalling out around midfield and you have to punt, or you're stalling out in field goal range, but not in touchdown range. You're not able to put the Gators away because you're not finishing drives. How many of those were because of procedural penalties, false starts, bad snaps? And yeah, my guy Bibby in here is probably right. It was wet, nasty game. Yeah, the foot. Yeah, you know what? And by the way, I'm not taking any shots at the center because he's been really good all season long up until the snap infractions yesterday. It probably was the wet ball. Probably played a big part in that. I want to take a look at some of the other statistics that defined this game and why. Again, I think Miami fans. I know that it wasn't the perfect like Van Gogh masterpiece that you were kind of hoping for. And I admit my pregame prediction, it was wrong. I thought Miami's offense would be a lot sharper. That's why I had my final score 42-16. But you know what? I underestimated Miami's defense, who held Florida to only 7 points in the game. And I think I underestimated Florida's defense, right? Thinking it'd be a little bit easier for Miami to score. But 26-7 was your final. Some of the other bizarre factors and numbers that decided this game, we'll have them for you when we come back. You want to keep it locked right here, my friends. We're not done yet on this live episode. We're live. Smash that like button and subscribe on this brand new episode of Locked On Canes. Keep it locked. Folks, this episode is brought to you by Square. Your favorite neighborhood spots run on Square. There are certain businesses that truly make the neighborhood feel like home. Whether it's the local sports bar that's packed on game days. You guys might be out there today watching pro football. Whether it's the coffee shop that knows your order by heart, or the corner deli that's been serving your community for decades. These are the places that bring people together. When the neighborhood businesses thrive, the whole neighborhood thrives. Guys, I love when the food trucks get together. They have those food truck rallies in my neighborhood. My son and I and my wife, we go crazy for those. And those are all powered by Square. Guys, spending money at these spots doesn't just support the businesses. It supports the people behind it and the community around it. Those local spots are what make the neighborhood feel like home, and so many of them run on Square. Square is a proud partner of more than 4 million neighborhood businesses around the world. You can go to square.com/go/LockedOnCollege to learn more. But before you do, go support your favorite neighborhood spot. You'll be happy you did. Square. We'll see you in the neighborhood. Thank you for making Locked On Canes your first listen. We're available free wherever you get your podcasts. We're free on YouTube. We're part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day. So I think the most shocking stat in this game was Florida on third down. Florida Gators attempted 13 third down plays in that football game. How many first downs did they convert in those situations? Same as me. 0. 0 for 13 on third down, this is one of those numbers, guys. Miami fans talk about it. They're going to say, look how great our defense is. Florida fans will talk about it. They say, look how terrible Billy Napier is and how awful our offense is. Yes, these things can both be true at once, because all my years watching football, covering football, I don't think I've ever seen an offer like that on third down. 0 for 13. Like that doesn't happen at any level of football, unless even in FBS versus FCS game. Bethune-Cookman was better on third downs than the Florida Gators were. That is a reflection both of Miami's defense, which is for real, and Florida's offense, which is clearly poorly coached despite having the talent. But 0 for 13 on third down. And again, I thought Miami did a brilliant job with their third down play calling, particularly the play that got Jacoby Thomas that big sack and he hit the Ray Lewis dance. God bless Corey Heatherman. I mean, we needed a guy like that so badly. And it's not only Heatherman's intensity, it's his creativity, it's his obsession with football. And he really, really fits the mold, not only of Miami's talent, but I think Heatherman's defensive philosophy really aligns with what Mario Cristobal wants his defense to look like. And it makes sense because Corey Heatherman and Mario Cristobal are both part of the Greg Schiano coaching tree. So those philosophies are bound to mesh, right? Miami went for 1 4th down and they converted it. That was actually the Marty Brown play that they should have let it go for a touchdown, but at least they did give him the first down on that 4th down. Florida went 3 for 6 on 4th down. Miami ran 76 total plays to Florida's 52, and the time of possession was 36 and a half minutes in Miami's favor compared to 23 and a half for the Florida Gators. And it was obvious that was a big part of Miami's game plan. In the first half, they were taking those delay of game penalties on the punts, that were inside the 50. Miami was trying to bleed out as much clock as possible just to limit the amount of times Florida had the football. It's a strategy that ended up paying off, of course. And man, I can't. Who do you guys give your game balls to in this one? I want to give out a few of those here. I do. I'm definitely going to give a game ball to Marty Brown. I thought Shamar Brown was probably the MVP of Miami's offense in this one. You have to give a game ball to Rueben Bain. I think you also have to give one to Akheem Mesidor, who was right freaking there. You give one to Marquise Lightfoot, who had a big sack in the game. Jacoby Thomas, who had a big sack in the game. I'm not going to give game balls to everybody, but I'll probably give game balls to those guys. You probably give one game ball to the entire offensive line, because the offensive line is used to sharing things. The O-line is a hive mind. They move and they think as one, right? I mean, one of the coolest annual awards in college football is the Joe Moore Award, which I hope Miami ends up winning in a few months, because the Joe Moore Award is given one award to an entire unit, because that's what an offensive line is. They think, they move, they feel as one. So I give a game ball to them as well. But let's take a look at Pro Football Focus numbers here, the highest graded Miami Hurricanes. We mentioned Rueben Bain, who played 52 snaps and graded out a 93.8 elite on PFF. Rueben has been over 90 every single game Miami has played so far, and he has been the highest graded Hurricane, offense or defense, in every game so far. And I agree with our guy ITK. For giving game balls to coaches, give one to Jason Taylor as well. Jason Taylor, Corey Heatherman, Alex Mirabal. Take yourselves a game ball. Defensive ends coach, offensive line coach, defensive coordinator. They all get game balls after this one. So Rueben Bain was Miami's highest graded player, 93.8. The guy is just a menace. Marquise Lightfoot played just 14 snaps, but impactful ones. 87.9. Akheem Mesidor, 83.3. Mohamed Toure was really good in this game. I thought Toure and Wesley Basaint both, their two best games at Miami so far this year. Toure led Miami with 10 tackles. He was all over the place. Wes Basaint, I thought, had a really good game as well. On the offensive side for Miami, highest graded Hurricane. He got in 5 snaps and was moving bodies. Like it was like one of those moving companies, like three guys in a truck, or one Ryan Rodriguez in a truck, I guess. He was moving bodies all over the place in 5 snaps. Ryan Rodriguez was Miami's highest graded offensive player at an 87.9. Elijah Lofton, I mentioned him getting involved in the passing game. He played 35 snaps and graded out at an 80.2. That's excellent. Marty Brown, who I thought was Miami's best offensive player, 40 snaps, graded a 78.2. Francis Mauinoa, 76.6 and 78 snaps. Mark Fletcher was also excellent, 70.7 grade in 53 snaps. Matthew McCoy, left guard, 70.7. Inez Cooper, right tackle, 66.8. So you see a lot of Miami's offensive linemen kind of hitting the top of those grades, right? Oh, man. So, all right, folks, 27-6 was your final score. How you feeling after beating the Florida Gators? How you feeling after a 4-0 start? And most importantly, how you feeling coming into a bye week, and then you take on the Florida State Seminoles? I think College Game Day might come back, by the way. That would not shock me. And comeback would be going to Tallahassee. But College Game, like the 48 hours that ESPN spent in South Florida, what an incredible display and kind of a commercial for the University of Miami. Like the McAfee show on Friday, College Game Day, and the ACC kickoff show were both on campus on Saturday. You had Pat McAfee going off the high dive. It was just a really, really fun weekend and a fun episode of College Game Day. Probably like one of the better episodes of College Game Day I've ever seen. I've been watching that show every Saturday in football season for a really, really, really long time. So you guys let me know, how concerned are you about what Miami didn't do well last night? And that was the passing offense was out of sync. So Miami has now 13 days until they take on what looks like a really good Florida State Seminoles team on the road, hostile environment there in Tallahassee. What would you like to see from Carson Beck to sharpen up? Was so good first 3 games of the season. He struggled at times yesterday. I like, though, that on Miami's kind of game-winning touchdown drive, the one that made it 20-7, Beck completed 3 passes, 3 for 3 on that drive when Miami was primarily moving it on the ground. But how do you need to see Carson Beck respond? Are you happy with how everything else has been going in Miami's operation so far? Because this team is tough. This team is physical. This team is strong-willed. This team is going to beat you up. They're going to punch you in the mouth. That's how this team is going to beat you at the line of scrimmage, and that travels well, by the way. Great line of scrimmage play, great running game. That stuff travels really well. So we'll see them in Tallahassee in a couple of weeks. How you feeling about Miami's chances? Let us know in the comments below. Folks, want to send a huge thank you to all the everydayers out there. And I'm all charged up on Cafecito today. I think we're going to do another episode tonight with Hoodie Girl, who it's been way too long since we've had my good friend Melissa, a.k.a. Hoodie Girl, on the show. So we'll talk about this win over the Florida Gators. We'll talk about what's to come. So make sure y'all leave us a comment, smash the like button, and subscribe. Subscribe on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you get your pods. Follow me on X at Alex Donno. And we'll talk to you next time on another episode of Locked On Canes. We are part of the awesome Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.